Frankly, I would tell you that, just like he rightly said, we are very much strong on ground. If that answers the issue, I mean the question of our preparedness. When you take a look at, let me say, certain capabilities of the Nigerian military. For instance, I don't know if you're aware we train pilots in this country. I don't mean civil aviation, I'm talking about military combat pilots. It's a far more difficult training than the normal piloting, which hitherto we were doing abroad. Now we've been able to domesticate that training here. And I don't know if you are, I know you are media men, so you are aware of the few pilots that graduated from the training school visiting Kaduna or Zaria recently, which the air chief had the cost to, commission them into the Air Force and so on. All these are part of, I would say, elements of resilience that the Army is been able to forge. When I say the Army, I'm using it in a generic term. That the Nigerian defense has been able to forge, on its own. And when you look at all these aspects, be it training, ability to sustain or retain the fighting zeal of the soldier in the battlefront and so on. When you consider all this, and then try to juxtapose it with that of other nations whom you think are ahead of us within the African category. Yeah. Frankly speaking, we are far ahead. That's why I was just nodding when he was talking, because I know that, look, most of this, the assessment here is done mainly on what do you have, what do you not have, and things like that, Yeah.
But what about our Navy? You've spoken about the Air Force. What about the Navy?
If you are talking about the African continent, we have one of the most powerful Navy. If you are talking about the African continent, because when you go global, we cannot, we cannot look at ourselves with India or the UK. All these are, come on, the Navy is their #1 strength, But if you are talking about the African continent, no, come on, our Navy is outstanding. In fact, we are training other navies.
Well, you talked about the kind of training they get internally. Now, what about welfare? Because that would also point to the issue of budgeting for the military. Now, we have an estimated budget of about $2.33 billion annual budget, thereabout. Now, how much of that goes towards welfare? There have been complaints of the personnel not being properly taken care of. And when they do pass on in the line of duty, what happens to their family? But let's start with the personnel and their welfare.
You are touching one area I really love talking about, because frankly speaking, when we talk about welfare, and when I talk about welfare, I'm not looking at any form of comparison. What's the welfare level in Togo or in Benin? Come on. I'm talking about standard welfare conditions. And if I need to do comparisons, I look at the Western countries. Those are the people I like comparing my country with. You will see how low you are, and then you try to buckle up. But if you keep comparing yourself with some failed nations around you, you always think you are, you've attained some level. So let's just discuss the welfare issue. Frankly speaking, I think we need to do far more than whatever we are doing now. I have this belief that the Nigerian military is being far shortchanged at the point of budgetary appropriation. I think that is where the problem actually starts from. Are we actually allotting enough to be able to take care of that before we begin to ask whether, if you have done it, does it get to the end user? Okay?
Shouldn't it be the other way? The little that you have now, is it getting to the end user before you talk about it?
The little is a drop in the ocean. The little remains a drop in the ocean. I know what I'm talking about. It remains a drop in the ocean, so that even when you address other peripheral issues that link up to bringing that package itself, you have already sliced the package by every 1/4. So it's a drop in the ocean. We should go back to budgetary allocations and see how we can beef that up. I keep telling a lot of people that, look, frankly speaking, the United States Army, I'm not talking about the United States Defense in total, the United States Army, what they spend on R&D alone, research and development, is far more than what our entire total budget as a nation is. Far more than that. And yet nobody complains. Here you just allot $1 billion. Oh, God. Everybody's shouting. As if we don't need those aircrafts. As if we don't need them. Nobody prays for war. But when it comes, I'm afraid, as a nation, you've got to spend money. And there is nothing like we have equipped you enough. You never, ever equip an army enough. We must get that. Because the more you're equipping, the more the enemy himself is equipping. And now Boko Haram has links with ISIS. This IMF in Kaduna, El Zakzaki's men, they have links with Hezbollah. They all have training programs and so on. These are the real people you are fighting, not the small Boko Haram you're seeing. So you've got to go back to your drawing table and ask yourself, what do I need to make this army formidable? Equipment, welfare, whatever. We need money, and you must pump it there. Then now you make sure that money goes into what you want it to go into. Welfare-wise, we are still very, very below expectations. I must be frank with you. And that is why even veterans in the field are suffering. But let's not go there. That's another one completely. Let's even address those who by now should be protecting us and making us sleep well in the night.
Well, Kimboye agrees with this. He says we're doomed if we don't increase spending on our armed forces.
Say again, madam?
We are doomed if we don't increase spending on our armed forces.
That's the bitter truth.
Dr. Ekhomu, you're smiling on the other side. Why would you be smiling? Because this picture that Stan-Labo has painted is a bleak picture.
It is.
And it's something that needs to be taken like a life and death matter. But there are quite a number of distractions along the way. So what can we do?
Well, I think Stan-Labo said it very well. The entire national budget is in fact the problem, or is the fountain source of the problem. This year we are budgeting $25 billion. Republic of South Africa is budgeting $110 billion. And Angola is budgeting $55 billion. And so on and so forth. And last year we budgeted $30 billion. So, our budget is trending downwards. I'm talking about the national budget. I'm not talking about the military budget now. So you can understand where Connor is coming from, where it is that what now gets across to the military, becomes a very paltry sum. And so when you look at South Africa, you look at Egypt, you see why they will be ranked ahead of us in terms of material. Now, so that's just the macro picture. Now let's get down to the individual, the fighting man and his welfare. So the whole budget for the military is a pittance. Well, what do you think we get to the guy? More pittance. And that's where the whole problem comes from. So I think we need to go back to our economics first. We need to go back to our economics. What's our economic, political economy of the country? What is the thinking? What is the philosophy in terms of the macro picture? And then before we now come down to the military as an organization that's necessary for defense. But be that as it may, I think that with good leadership and with even prudent management of the little resources on ground. Let me talk about the Navy. You talked about the Navy. Nigerian Navy, for example, is one of the leading navies on the continent. It's one of the leading navies. GOG.
They say we're third on the continent.
Yeah, well, I'm saying in actual fact. Again, remember those kinds of things, they are based on what I've said. If the U.S. gives a lot of destroyers,